Hello, our viewers, and thank you so much for joining me, Costa, on the National Question program. We know it has been a while since we get back to you on the critical issues that are bedeviling Zimbabwe at the moment, the election period, the court challenge, all these issues, and currently the country is seized with the legitimacy question. The economy has responded after President Emmerson Mnangagwa has been duly declared the winner of the elections, and he has already assumed his duties. He has appointed his cabinet last week. He has appointed also the commission of inquiry into the critical question of the violence that occurred on the 1st of August post 30 July harmonized elections. And you know what have been circled, toasted on social media and everywhere, people speaking about the legitimacy and how the economy has responded after the election season has ended. And this is President Emmerson Mnangagwa's words that we are done with politics, let's focus on delivery. So today we have got special guests to discuss on the legitimacy question and the prospects of economic development under the leadership of course, President Emmerson Mnangagwa. And my special guest today is Zanu-PF Secretary for Legal Affairs, Mr. Mnyaradza Paul Mangwana, and as well as MDC President Nelson Chamisa, spokesperson Dr. Sebanda. Gentlemen, I must welcome you to the program.
Thank you so much.
And let me start with Mr. Mangwana. How far do you agree with the supposition that Zimbabwe's judicial system is compromised and therefore he has lost its legitimacy?
That is not correct. We have an independent judiciary which has been performing its constitutional mandate very well, with separation of powers not only as a doctrine but in practice. The judiciary is completely independent. They make their decisions without the influence of the executive.
Well and fine. Dr. Swanda, I just want to give you a quick response to what I said. You deny that the judicial system is captured, and this is your position as an opposition party, and precisely a position which the president of your party, Nelson Chamisa, holds, that the judiciary is not discharging its duties on an impartial basis. How do you respond to what he just said?
Well, Mr. Mangwana was at the Supreme Court, at the Constitutional Court during the hearing, and there was glaring evidence that the court was captured. Okay, as you were entering into the court, and he knows this, the people who were checking you, the security that was there, were people who were clad in Zanu-PF t-shirts, okay, under their white shirts. And I confronted them and said, how could the Judiciary Services Commission allow this to happen, that the court itself is surrounded by Zanu-PF militia? And that was a clear indication that even physically, the court, even the judges inside knew that we were being let in by Zanu-PF militias. And then let's forget that and say, well, Zanu-PF is always going to do that. Zanu-PF has always been doing things that are extremely illegal for as long as your memory can take you. But I would ask us to define what a captured judiciary is. A captured judiciary is one that says in 2018, this is not 1844, 2018, you have the idea that you can separate facts from figures. You're going to have to be applying an ancient brain, a fossil of a brain, to be able to make that make sense. It just doesn't make sense. You can realize that they were attempting to, by all means, dismember language, dismember science, to an extent where you are separating facts from figures. In fact, you get facts out of figures. Figures are the basis of your facts in any field of science. So when you have, your highest court in the land not being ashamed to utter such statements, you realize that there is a lot of force behind them that requires them to speak in a particular way.
So, Dr. Sana, let me just seek a clarification. The court was very clear that the applicant, your president, lacked primary evidence to substantiate his claims, and for a fact, that's the counsel which was leading him, which was representing him, would not provide that evidence. So how would you say it is a compromised constitutional court decision?
That is very close to nonsense. I'll tell you why. The fact of the matter is we didn't go to court in order to ask the court to verify the results. We went to court to say ZEC was no longer credible as a source of a result because of the glaring evidence that they did not have a single result. In any place on earth, if the person who's counting your numbers doesn't know what number they got to, that result will be nullified. This is what happened in Kenya. The court labored itself with a question we weren't asking. We weren't asking them to look at the evidence. People tend to forget. The NBC president was very clear. For as long as you did not allow us to follow the ballot everywhere it went, okay, we were not going to ever rely on the so-called primary evidence that was being kept at the Shek building. It was being kept by Zanu-PF as far as we can tell. ZEC refused for us to have the evidence before the fact. And then you want us to come to court and say we're going to go and open the ballot boxes that are in the custody of Zanu-PF? We're not going to do that. We're not stupid. And then the court wanted us to go down that rabbit hole, okay, to go looking for rabbits. We're not looking for rabbits. There was we went to court a few days before the court and said, and the court is not allowed to refuse to issue a subpoena. The court must be interested in the delivery of justice. And the delivery of justice includes making sure that all the evidence that's needed to reach at a decision that is just is placed before the court. We went to court and requested the court to go and collect a server that is being kept at the RBZ on the 24th floor that has the real results where President Nelson Chamisa won by 2.6 million, and we had 2 more parliamentary seats than Zanu-PF. Okay, and then the court refused to do that, and the court doesn't have the right to do that. So you can see that force was being used.
I do not want to ask my colleagues' professional qualifications, but certainly I do not think he is a lawyer, and I'm not sure if he has practiced law. So it would be unfair for me to engage in a debate of legal procedures. You should have asked another lawyer for us to debate for the benefit of the public. But the point is that there is what is called primary evidence. If you are challenging the result of an election, you are saying that from this primary evidence, I won the election. How do you go to the primary evidence? The primary evidence of an election are the ballot papers. And the law allows recount wherever anyone doubts that the counting has been done properly. No one challenged that the ballot papers in the boxes were tampered with. There was no allegation like that. This is why the court was laboring to say, go to the primary evidence. And the primary evidence are the ballot papers. The law allows for a recount when anyone is in a doubt that the ballots have been counted properly or the ballots allocated to you are correct. You ask for a total recount in the presence of witnesses. And at each and every polling station, each political party argues. So we cannot extrapolate an outcome of an election when you have got the ballot papers with you. This is basically the gist of the argument. Do we have primary evidence? In other words, are the ballot papers still available? Yes, they are. Why did you not ask for the ballot papers to be reopened, recounted, and then we see whether you got the votes alleged to have been received by you, by ZEC? So this was the issue. Okay. But I do not intend to review the Supreme Court.
Well, fine. I think we must move on to another stage. I think the Constitutional Court has made a decision, and Zimbabwe has moved forward according to you, and they are still resisting. But anyway, let me just ask you something interesting. You deny that his claims that Zanu-PF has captured the judicial system. How would you describe a situation where, when one ceases to be a Zanu-PF member, or one loses his ministerial post, then legal cases or cases of breaching the constitution started to surface, but not before the person goes out of Zanu-PF?
I'm not sure. One has to be very specific. What I know is that we have rule of law in our country. The fact that you are in power, it does not make you immune to legal proceedings. Okay. Your status does not guarantee that you are now above the law. Okay. So we have rule of law, we have constitutionalism in our country. If you commit an offense, civil, criminal, when you're in power, you will still be visited by the arms of the law.
But I'm making reference to some of the cabinet ministers that you know for a fact, the likes of Samuel Ndenge, the Xavier Kasukweres, you know, a lot of them, especially after the November power transition processes, you know how the judiciary started to pursue, especially the anti-corruption side, saying they had done a lot of things in contradiction of the constitution. So I'm saying, how would that happen?
Let me just correct you. The judiciary does not follow offenders. It is the police and the prosecution. The police arrest you, and the prosecution then prosecute you. Whether these people were insulated by President Mugabe from the arms of the law, that is another issue. But what I know for a fact is that President Mnangagwa has stated clearly that no one is above the law. Whether you are a minister in his government, if you commit a crime, you will be arrested.
So some of you agree that Mugabe compromised the judicial system?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying
he was ruling this country with cabinet ministers who are being brought before the courts today.
We removed President Mugabe from power, and we made it very clear.
Do we agree?
The reasons were that he was not complying with the constitution. That's one of the reasons why Zanu-PF took him out of power. So yes, as a matter of fact, the way he was insulated, and he was not allowing the arms of the law to operate freely. And that is the reason why we removed him from power.
We have got the anti-corruption, we have got the legitimacy, we have got the judiciary. They work closely together.
No, they don't.
So
let's be clear. There are separation of roles in this country. The Anti-Corruption Commission investigates crimes of corruption.
Yes.
The courts will only try a person who has been brought before them. The prosecution prosecutes all offenders. So each one plays its own role. So don't mix them. If you don't disentangle them, then this conversation will not make sense.
I'm coming from a suggestion that Mugabe was removed because he breached the constitution and a lot of allegations that your party has leveled against him. So
Correct.
we agree that during his time, the judicial system was not delivering its services.
I'm not saying, this is why I'm saying don't mix up issues.
Okay.
There is the police, there is the prosecution, there is the judiciary. The judiciary has always performed its work, but they can only hear a case which has been brought before them. So if matters are not investigated because people are favored by the former president, the judiciary will not be able to come to your home and try you. So the police have to arrest someone, bring them to the prosecutor general. The prosecutor general has to create a docket and bring the matter to court.
So we go back to the original position that the Zanu-PF has been working in courts with the police and other arms of the government in trying to breach the constitution. Do we agree with that position?
Mugabe was removed from power. He was removed from power by Zanu-PF. So distinguish the former leader and the party. He did not own that party, but he was abusing his authority, and for that reason, the party moved him from power.
Okay. Maybe just before we move forward, you made some statements before that you can only fight the system if you have the same weapons that they are using against you. And I quote that legal knowledge is not illegal knowledge is a useless weapon. I have been in the system and I know how lethal it is. These are your statements that you have made before. How would you like just to explain how lethal and all these issues? Because this is a loaded statement, Mr. Mawad.
That statement was made in a context, and you've taken it out of context.
Just explain.
The system can be lethal. That's what I meant. That is the Mugabe security system.
And you said
and I said because I was a minister in his government.
All right.
And I was explaining to my friend that, look, this is the kind of pressure one would get. I was getting pressure to have the constitution be written in a particular way. And I was explaining to my friend to say, look, this is the kind of pressure I've been going through. And yes, I am aware, because I was serving in that system, that this system can be dangerous. But luckily, we've gone through it. We're celebrating the signing of the constitution, and we're making a reflection on what I'd gone through. I'd gone through a lot of pressure to take certain positions and to abandon certain positions. I knew that we needed a very democratic constitution which guaranteed all rights. But there were times when the party or the leader then was feeling that I was compromising too much. And this is the explanation I was giving to my friend, reflecting after the success of the constitution.
Dr. Hassan, he has made these statements before. Well, what's your position regarding that? You have been consistently saying Zanu-PF connive with the judiciary and the arms of the government, the police, and the other.
Look, I think that the list you've given is inconclusive. I propose that we include Mangwana himself in the list of those that are captured. Look, he was captured by Mugabe and praised Mugabe throughout with all the mighty coup until he was captured by Mnangagwa. You see, it's a circle. They are in a vicious circle. Zanu-PF itself is no longer a political party. It is an institution that is captured by Mnangagwa and some aspects of the military. And that is the problem. Your country is in deep trouble if you can't even have a political party that can exist and exercise its ability to proffer alternative forms of government. So that's the problem we have. You're talking to captured minds. You're talking to minds that are already in a cabinet, and they're only allowed to go so far. And those minds cannot be exercised in their full to their fullest extent. But let's be very clear here. Mr. Mangwana relies on what the illegitimate president Mnangagwa says about no one being above the law and so forth. The fact of the matter is the same illegitimate president, the same person, less than 3 weeks ago, stated very clearly that he controls the legal system in this country, controls the prosecution, talks to the judges and tells them who not to prosecute, how to proceed in specific issues. So we have no debate to have here, unless we're simply entertaining these guys for the sake of entertaining them, or to look as though we're being impartial. The fact of the matter is that the illegitimate president said that on Twitter, and he was asked several times, why would you say that you've told the courts how to deal with Honorable BT's matter? On several occasions, he said he interfered. How does he interfere if the judiciary and the rest of the legal system is free in this country? We've been here before. This very same Zanu-PF that says Mugabe was a bad guy as they're going through the election because they're trying to get
just ask
new
you
master.
something to this one. Is the opposition's understanding of judiciary delivering its services on a partial basis mean that giving decisions or verdicts that favor the opposition? Is this how you can only describe as the judiciary not being captured?
Look, I think that we do ourselves a disservice if you try to ask questions so as to look as though you're being fair to me and him, or to look as if you're asking tough questions.
I'm just asking. I need to understand. Because you have been consistent.
You're posturing. Let me tell you why you're posturing. You're posturing because you are attempting to ask me a question that is not relevant. The relevant question is this. No, the relevant question is this. Is whether or not anybody in the MDC, okay, or the MDC president has ever said he controls the judicial, has ever said he controls the prosecution. And on the other side, you clearly have somebody who said so. Why should we be asked that question? Why should we ask a question about that when we have always stated that the judiciary must be independent and we respect its independence? When clearly you have a court that decides to talk about facts that are not figures, and decides to answer a question that is not brought before it, you have a serious problem. You have a judiciary that, if you watch the media and Zanu-PF in the weeks leading up to the Concord decision, and I was speaking to a lot of media, and this is the narrative they were driving, you must by all means look for the real evidence, look for the primary evidence. Primary evidence for what? We don't need the primary evidence to tell you any primary evidence other than numbers that come from ZEC. Numbers that come from ZEC are primary. This is a government body established by the Constitution. If that organization says the number is 552, the number is 552 and that's primary. If that organization says, oh no, the number is not 564, then you ask yourself, can these guys, or do these guys have the ability to give us a number that we can rely on to run our country? That is the question we ask the court. Mr. Mangwana still hasn't understood that. I just told him he still hasn't understood that. He still has that ancient idea, fossilized idea, that the question before the court was about
the total number of results, and that we're saying to court that we won the elections. We didn't say that because the court refused to go and get the server. Mr. Mangwan, ZAC advertised a tender in which it requested for people to supply it with a server that it would use to tabulate the elections. And what we got at the end of the elections was an Excel spreadsheet, which is not a saver. And we asked the court to not accept the Excel spreadsheet, but look at the saver, and the court refused to do that. Tell me why, if it is not captured.
You have the evidence of ballot papers.
The ballot papers are at the Shake building.
No.
Yes, they are.
You
Where are they?
have the ballot papers, fresh, immediately after counting. Every candidate has a right to demand a recount within 48 hours. And there's a reason for that provision in the law, that if you doubt the counting, you can look at the primary evidence and recount those votes at that polling station within 48 hours. LDC Alliance was clearly aware of that provision.
We want to move.
You can only rely on that argument if you think Zimbabweans are totally stupid. Zimbabweans are not. No, you're not talking to stupid people. No, you're not talking to stupid
That's
people.
the law.
Do not hide behind a finger. You're talking to very intelligent people. Let's be very clear here. Let's be very clear. Everyone in this country knows that for as long as you have the ballot papers in the custody of ZAC, it is the same as having the ballot papers in the custody of Zanu-PF.
No.
And that, let me tell you why, and that
You
is
have your agents at each and every polling station.
No,
Gentlemen,
and we didn't keep
let's
the
move to the
papers.
next question.
And that is the only reason why your courts,
had
that is the only reason why your courts, which you have captured, wanted us to go and open ballot papers that are being kept by Zanu-PF. That is why your media, your allied media, was asking that question. Answer the question, can 300,000 people vote in 1 hour in Machelo? And how do they do that?
Let's move to the next stage.
Answer that question.
We know the election and a lot of
We know it was stolen,
associated with it. Now, Mr. Mangwana, we just want to move forward and get to the legitimacy question of the prospect of economic development. But before that, I just want to understand from you. This is exactly another statement that you said. Democracy requires us to comply with the court orders. This is what you have said before. Now, let's look at the Chief Council President, Mr. Charumbira. You know, he was brought before the court by the Election Resource Center to retract his statements that he had made before, pledging and even asking other traditional chiefs to rally behind their support behind the Zanu-PF. And the constitution is clear, traditional chiefs should be apolitical. And once the court has said that decision, Mr. Charumbira has defied that decision. And he has not retracted his statement, regardless of the court having made that decision. And you said it is delivering its services impartially. How would you respond to such a situation?
I have no mandate to defend Chief Charumbira, and Chief Charumbira does not belong to Zanu-PF.
But this is a verdict which was passed by the court.
There is a verdict by the courts. Please ask Chief Charumbira if he has violated the law to answer for himself. I have no mandate to answer on behalf of Chief Charumbira.
No. The question is why has the Prosecutor General not arrested him, and the Prosecutor General is appointed by Zanu-PF, and the Prosecutor General responds to the illegitimate president.
No.
Yes.
The Prosecutor General is appointed in terms of the Constitution.
And reports to the illegitimate president, who said that he can
So
determine
he's
who gets.
Can you just allow him
in
to
terms
explain? Can you just allow him to explain?
The Constitution.
She's refusing to explain.
Right? You cannot ask me to answer as to why Chief Charumbira said what he said, or why certain institutions have not taken action against Chief Charumbira. I am the Secretary for Legal Affairs of Zanu-PF, a political party. I cannot answer on behalf of public institutions, because I don't serve in those public institutions, nor do I control them.
In your introduction, you said
Yes.
the judiciary is delivering its services impartially.
Yes.
And I just brought before you this matter, that this case of Charumbira.
Please, I do not want to insult people when we are having interviews, and I'm restraining myself. Let's not mix up issues. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I'm a professional providing that. So I don't go into those kind of spatting kind of things. Otherwise, I'll not come for further interviews with you. I come here for us to engage for the benefit of the public.
Yes.
And let's focus on that. We have enough arsenal in terms of words of insult also. The point is this. Chief Charumbira is a traditional leader.
Yes.
is the President of the Chiefs Council. If he says any remarks, let him respond for himself. He does not belong to Zanu-PF. I speak on behalf of Zanu-PF, a political party, and I can only respond to issues which have something to do with Zanu-PF itself, not what someone else has said in their own capacity.
I want to bring another item here, Mr. Mangwana. In May, President Nandagwa set up a special anti-corruption community, a unit to prosecute matters under this office, and we've got a case recently in the courts. Francis Kutlanga, the former permanent secretary in the mines, and he is being represented by Tafatu Bamuvang from Macharaga and Mugia law firm. Svanai Macharaga is a member of the Special Anti-Corruption Community of the OPC, which is representing all corruption matters, but his partners in the law firm are also representing accused person. The other one is defending, the other one is prosecuting. How would that
Can you see that your question is completely inappropriate?
Right.
You are asking Nyaras Paul Mangwana, Secretary for Legal Affairs of Zanu-PF,
yes,
to answer as to what Macharaga, Mugia, and all sorts of people have done. How do I do so?
No, this is...
Under whose authority do I comment on what Macharaga is or is not doing?
No, this underlies the subject that we are discussing.
No, but the point is simple. Please ask your question to the appropriate people.
Okay.
You can't ask me in my capacity as Zanu-PF Secretary for Legal Affairs to say what Macharaga is doing, whether it's legal or illegal. It has nothing to do with it.
No, gentlemen, let's move to the next stage. I know you wanted to respond, but because of our time, we want to move to and address other items. Let's look at the legitimacy question itself. Who is the legitimate president, Dr. Aslan?
Well, you have a legitimate president after you've had a valid election, after you've had a credible election.
Okay.
And you haven't had a credible election because ZEC was not a credible umpire, and we put that before the court, and the court refused to do that. I think that, and it applied, and I think that, and I totally believe that the idea is so old. The idea that the only question you can bring to court is whether or not you accept the results. The question we brought to court is whether or not
who is the legitimate president of the country?
The country doesn't always have a legitimate president. The premise of your question is mistaken. The country doesn't always have a legitimate president. The country did not have a legitimate president between the date that President Mugabe was dethroned and the date that a new president was inaugurated. So the underlying assumption is mistaken. But I think that your underlying assumption, asking questions about somebody who speaks...
But it is a matter of fact that is wrong. We do not mislead the public. The country had a legitimate president between November and the election. The constitution of the country is very simple and clear. When a president resigns, the party from which the party which he came from has a right to choose a successor, and all the procedures were followed when President Mugabe resigned. Don't worry about the circumstances under which he resigned, whether they were forced or not forced. But the fact of the matter is that he tendered his written resignation, and he has not withdrawn that. After he resigned, Zanu-PF, in terms of the constitution, had a right to choose a successor, and it chose a successor. So between December and November 19 and the holding of the election, we had a president who had been chosen in terms of the constitution.
All right. So,
look again, he's not talking about the same period as I was talking about. I mean, this is,
so let me just understand something. Can I understand something from you? Are you still, because I know you've been mulling to double on the anniversary day last week, and unfortunately because of the circumstances, it has been suspended. Look, are you still going to inaugurate Mr. Chamisa?
Look. I speak. Mr. Mangwana wants to interject, and I think it's a reasonable interjection. I let him speak, and he should let me do the same if he's going to proceed in a manner.
No, we just want to engage.
I do not. Yeah, we have to engage on normal basis, and if he has a right to interject, I must enjoy the same right. And if I think it's a reasonable interjection, I let it go, because that's how people communicate. Okay. Look, the fact of the matter is that the question of legitimacy in this country has nothing to do with what the MDC is doing. Whether the MDC is inaugurating an idea of a government, a transparent government, it still remains that this country has an illegitimate president. If you don't believe it,
look at the streets of Harare and ask yourself why the streets of Harare are over-policed. Okay? If you don't believe it, look at every city in this country and ask yourself why they're over-policed. Because you have a government that knows very well that it lost the election and does not trust the citizens of this country and has to police those people on a daily basis. And the second effect of the matter is that an illegitimate government relies on PR rather than government. This government has had no policy at all because it really can't implement any policy that the people of this country can believe in. You can see what they're concentrating.
But they released the manifesto before the election.
Do you remember anything that's in their manifesto? Other than for how long Mnangagwa has been trying to be president of this country? There's nothing other than that. There's only chapter 1 in the Zanu-PF manifesto, and nothing else. If you remember one thing, if I ask you what President Chamisa stood for, you remember our spaghetti roads, you remember that we said we're going to change the currency that Tulin said he would do, and then he's been backtracking as soon as he came into office and so on. So you remember specific things that we promised. You will also know that our manifesto was called a smart program. Tell me what the Zanu-PF manifesto was. Who knows it? No one does.
Mr. Ngwana, what are the prospects now? What are the chances of Zimbabwe developing economically with this position from the opposition?
It is not the opposition who should develop this country. It is the government, the party which is in government.
But they are the people of Zimbabwe.
MDC is not the people of Zimbabwe. They are an opposition party, full stop. We are the governing party with the mandate to come up with programs which will better the lives of Zimbabweans. And we are doing exactly that. President Mnangagwa has laid out his legislative program. This country will not have been independent. We do not look to America only.
Look, the final settlement at Lancaster House Constitution, Lancaster House, to liberate this country was superintended by the United States. But obviously, Mr. Mangwana has analyzed the history of this country. It is the United States.
The country was not liberated by Lancaster. Lancaster was a ceasefire. Lancaster was a ceasefire agreement. The Americans came to assist in the signing of a ceasefire. This country was liberated by the barrel of the gun. We fought and achieved independence through the barrel of the gun. But we had to sit down and sign a ceasefire agreement. Lancaster was a ceasefire arrangement. I thought I should correct that.
I know you're a lawyer, I'm an international relations expert, and I'll tell you that the United States is an important country, and that you ought to do things right to get on the right side of democracy. And that trying to ignore that is going to be a difficult problem. I see that Zanu-PF was already beginning to celebrate that an outgoing ambassador says that Britain would put some force on the Bretton Woods institutions in order to alleviate the debt that was caused by corruption in this country. The fact of the matter is that those Bretton Woods institutions are headquartered in the United States, in Washington, D.C. And so the long dream would need to end very quickly if people need to understand the workings of the international, of economics in an international setting. One hopes that Zanu-PF realizes that this country is much bigger, much broader than an illegitimate president, and that the idea that we should tie this country down to someone's ambition should be limited as quickly as possible, because the people of Zimbabwe deserve a better government, the people of Zimbabwe deserve better businesses. And you can see right now, Zanu-PF has instigated a process in which informal traders on the streets are being harassed and arrested by the police, superintended by Zanu-PF government. And these people are honest people trying to make a living. Let me just give some warning here. A lot of dictators have always believed that they can rule forever and that they can control society forever. The serious problem with that idea is that the more the spaces, Mr. Mangwana, the more the social, economic, and political spaces you close out for a society, or for a community, for a people, the more you push the country to a brink.
Let's there is no sufficient.
We have a public health
disaster
norming. We have a public health disaster norming. We have cholera, which can, without regard to politics, kill anyone. And this responsible government has a duty to protect the public. This is what has been happening in the last week. And we have lost human life. We've lost people. You know, I know the opposition want to cry about 6 people who were shot towards the end of the election and pay no regard to the 200-something people who have died as a result of cholera. When the government now moves in to protect the people against, to ensure that we don't have a public health disaster, then we are said to be, again, doing the wrong thing. No. We are a responsible government. Yes, we are trying to contain the effects of cholera. We are trying to contain a public health disaster looming in our country. Let's deal with the immediate challenges, then we can go on to other policies of how to ensure that we don't have another outbreak of cholera.
You just raised something. He just raised something very interesting, and I need him to clarify. Who do you think should take responsibility of the 1st of August violence that claimed 6 lives? You raised that.
It's the opposition. The opposition, they were provoking. I mean, there was also high-handedness. That's why there's a commission of inquiry that whether or not use of live ammunition was necessary. But as to whether or not creating a danger to innocent civilians who were also going about their business, that was done by the opposition. So, but let us not also go into a matter which is under investigation by the...
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because they are driving us to comment when there's a commission of inquiry which is supposed to be doing its work.
It's you.
I raised the issue that you cannot focus on you are not paying due regard to the multitudes of people who are about to die of cholera. And when the government moves in to protect people from this health disaster, they've done wrong again.
All right. Dr. Zanu.
Look, I wonder whether or not there's anybody who understands public policy making in Zanu-PF, because what you just told me shows me that there is a danger that what we have in Zanu-PF is a group of people that think in what we call unilinear ways. When you make public policy, Mr. Mangwana, you have to think from a myriad of directions. Sure. When you attack a public policy problem, you cannot attack it with a horse view when it is on the race. You're not on a race, you're running a society. The cholera crisis we have, Mr. Mangwana, and we were the first to go out and visit those victims in those areas, and then the illegitimate president copied that. He's a good student, by the way. Congratulations for that. But let's be very clear. The cholera we have is a result of sewage pipes that run under Harare that were dug in by the Smith regime, okay? And nothing has been done by Zanu-PF for the last 40 years. And those were put underground to cater for 500,000 people. Now you have nearly 2 million people in this country, and they are bursting at the seams because this government plans the way you're doing. Okay? Let me finish. It's very important that he learns this. Okay. It's very important. It's an important public policy lesson. So to then transport that crisis to Harare CBD and say that there's people that are on the streets and trying to make a decent living because this government has destroyed the economy is firstly to be responsible, but secondly to fail to understand one thing, that if there was someone with cholera in Harare and selling on the streets and you disperse them out of the CBD, what you're simply doing is transferring the problem elsewhere where they're going to go and try and sell their wares because they still have them and they still want to make a living. And that is the myopia. That is the danger of a government that only sees things through one focused lens. What President Chamisa' government would do under these circumstances is understand that our problem is multilinear and requires thoughtful intervention. This intervention is thoughtless. This intervention is dangerous. This intervention may cost us more lives. And I know that Zanu-PF has never cared about lives of people in this country.
An emergency. We resolve the issue of the emergency, but we also must accept the fact that Harare has been under the governance of an MTC council for the last 20 years. And they have not dealt with this public health issue.
You know, this argument that Mr. Mangwana makes is only possible, is only viable
where you think that your audience is utterly stupid.
Gentlemen,
The audience, the people, let's be very clear, we have the highest literacy rate in this country. We have the highest literacy rate in this continent, and we compete very well in the world. Let me tell you one thing. The people of Zimbabwe know that this country has a minister of local government, and that minister interferes with the work of local councils everywhere. And that's one of the things we need to resolve. That's one of the things that we say, Zanu-PF, come down, let's sit down, because we know you can't run national government, but we can help you. Because we love the people of this country. How can we help you? Let us run these local governments, 81% of this economy, 81% of the GDP of this country, and you will see. If Zanu-PF agrees, we will help them get re-elected, these people. We will help them become reasonable. We will help them have a country that has roads. When they allow us to run just the cities alone, we can show you the difference between development and stagnation. But we can do that.
You won elections
the
in the cities.
Gentlemen,
You won elections in the cities.
Why appoint a minister of local government? Why appoint the 10 provincial ministers?
Dr. San,
Don't you read the constitution?
Dr.
Why
San,
do that?
Dr.
Let us
San.
run this and you will see.
No.
President Nelson Chamisa will overperform
Dr. San,
if you let him
I've got
run the local
I've got
council.
a question for you.
Yes.
How does the opposition wants this country to move forward when it still maintains that we have an illegitimate leadership?
Look,
Because I'm coming from the position of the public who are saying you are pursuing now a selfish interest, you just need to let it go, you just need to accept the leadership and participate in nation building, economic development and such. How would you like this?
the presidency of Nelson Chamisa is not his. He doesn't see government the way Zanu-PF sees it. The presidency of Nelson Chamisa is about this country. It's about us developing an infrastructure that can take us into the 22nd century. Not relying on, look at the roads. Zanu-PF
The campaign is over.
The campaign
Let's
ends
meet
with
at
a
the
rigged-
next election and let's focus
campaign-
on governing.
A campaign that ends with a rigged result is not over.
No, the campaign is
The
over.
campaign that ends with a
Let's
rigged
focus
result.
on
If you
governance.
want campaigns to be over, allow the elections to be free, fair, credible, and believable. Then they give you legitimacy and you move forward.
Gentlemen, I must give you 2 minutes each to just give your departing remarks to our viewers who have been listening to.
My departing
your points.
remarks are that we want to galvanize Zimbabwe, rebuild our country, work on our economy, create more jobs, and President Mnangagwa's focus right now is for every Zimbabwean to put their hands on the wheel and work towards the development of our country. The time for politics is over. After when the next 5 years come, we'll do politics again. For now, it's work, and turning around our economy and improving the lives of our people. That is the focus of the Zanu-PF government. That is the focus of President Mnangagwa and his government.
Dr. San,
Look, when you're sitting on the other side of a Zanu-PF official and you're talking about the economy, you're talking about developing the country, there's very little to say. Because the fact of the matter is, you've had this for 40 years. It's been said over and over and over again. Mnangagwa is not a name to be introduced to the people of Zimbabwe. He is a known name, he is identifiable. You know what is associated with. Zanu-PF has a lot of experience, nearly 50 years, a lifetime of experience. And all that lifetime of experience is failure, stagnation, unnecessary debts, militarization, murder, no roads, no infrastructure, nothing at all. It is a country that was hopeful. It is a country I grew up in. I tear every day when I walk the streets. The streets I loved so much. And those streets I cannot identify anymore. Those streets are not the streets that are in my memory. They're dirty. They smell of death itself. And that is the experience that this country has had as Zanu-PF. And I say to the people of Zimbabwe, continue doing what you do. You've been doing it great. And that one day, Zanu-PF will see the end. And they are fast reaching that. Rigging is not going to help them any further from here.
Gentlemen, I must thank you so much for making time out of your heavily packed schedules, and I appreciate that. And up until next time, we visit you. So, our viewers, you have heard it, the discussion on the legitimacy question, the prospect of economic development under the leadership of President Emmerson Mnangagwa, as well as how the judiciary is discharging its duties. Opposition still maintains that it is compromised, it has lost its legitimacy, and Mr. Mawana has also raised his points. Here there is, you can make your judgments. Thank you so much for with us. Until next time.